Welcome to Known Through Connection. I'm your host, Jess Collicott. Known Through Connection is a podcast where we value presence over performance. Not that performance isn't important, but presence is where you build connection. And today, we get to talk with our guest, Christy Johnston. She's a wonderful person and a perfect guest today. This podcast was born out of the belief that people matter. People deserve to be seen, valued, and Christy espouses a lot of those values. And so I'm so glad to have my friend Christy. Christy, welcome to Known Through Connection. So glad to have you on today.
Thank you, Jess. I am honored to be here and cannot wait for our conversation today, like many others in the past. Thank you.
Awesome. Yeah, I want to dig into a little bit of our history. We'll start off with a little bit of our connection, and then I want to go into your values, what makes you uniquely you, I think. But to set the stage for Known Through Connection, we connected originally at the Omaha Organizational Development Network here in Omaha, which is it fair to say user group community, maybe, of folks who get together to talk about ways to level up and help people in organizations that they represent, right? And I remember I was with one of my team members, Jess Christensen. We were doing some networking and learning, and you were speaking on, I believe, appreciating employees. And we sat, gosh, I feel like front row. So I feel like we got great seats on your presentation. And then afterwards, I remember it clearly, at least I can visualize it, saying hi to you in the parking lot, just thanking you for speaking. And then we connected over social media and then went out for coffee for October 2024. And things just kind of took off from there.
Right. Oh my gosh. Yes. It seems like a lifetime ago, but that is exactly how it all lined up. And I'm so glad we did.
Yes, it was. We have been through so much life since then. I still can't believe. I know there have been multiple times over the last year where I'm like, we've only known each other for a year or a year and a half. How can that be? We've been through so much. Um, Christy, one of the things that stood out to me about you, your social media, you are so people first. You value people. You make people feel seen and cared for. And you've had a career where you've been in senior positions. Where does that um, where does that sense of belief, that people should be valued and seen, where does that come from? Because I've seen that be steady. We've been through quite a bit in the last year and a half, and that has remained, and I have always seen it from you. Where does that come from?
I would say it started when I was little, how I grew up. My parents were a huge influence for me and very faith-based people. They both were kind of preachers in our church. And I think having that faith foundation and surrounded by our church family from the time I was born was a huge foundation for my life and how you look at things and what matters most in this world really is, people and helping them. That's not my priorities list because it's always God first. But if
Mm.
we put ourselves in people's shoes and take the focus off of ourselves, life is just so much better for everyone. And I've learned to live that way. And I've been blessed to have amazing servant leaders throughout my corporate career in staffing and grow up that way, be mentored by them, learn from them, see how it should be done so that I'm able to really go and help teach and apply those things within other organizations today.
That's awesome. I had wondered if for you, and it is for me, if your faith and belief that there's a God who cares about people, if that plays into your view of how you see people around you.
Absolutely, it does. And I'm not the type of person who normally focuses on faith in business, but I'm finding through interactions and people I meet with and really connect with, those are the people that tend to stay connected. Those are the people I tend to want to reach out to and have a relationship with, the people that have very similar values. And so it really, to me, is about being unconditional, caring about people for the person first over the employee.
Mm,
really seeing them for who they are, helping in any way I can, for them to reach their personal and professional goals and just enjoy life and live to their fullest potential. To me,
yeah.
those are things that really matter more than anything else, no matter where I've been in my professional career.
Mm. That's awesome, Christy. And again, one of the reasons I have so enjoyed getting to know you and value our relationship. And I've tried to, as I see people who have that same sense of valuing people and helping people win at life, try to stay connected or form new connections. And I'm meeting new people all the time where that matters so much. You may have just answered this, but I kind of want to ask you because I'm curious, right? You have been a chief people officer. You've been in upper leadership, upper management at sizable companies. I want to ask you, and like I said, maybe you kind of answered this, but how in those roles, how did you stay grounded, right? And the reason I ask it is I've been in a senior role myself and I feel the pressure and I've seen people change. I've seen people get into senior roles and I've seen them change to where um, they kind of lose their humanity, right? They're more about there's this line that's been stepped over where they're more about protectionism or extracting all the value they can from their employees, but not giving that much, right? How have you, when you were in those roles, how did you hold on? How did you stay grounded and true to your values and sense of values in that role?
Yeah, I would say it really helps when you have a CEO who lives that servant leadership mentality, day in, day out, have the regular one on ones. It just constantly reinforces that. And I think we were really lucky, blessed, I guess, where I was, where we would hire senior leaders, other leaders, even how we hired our employees from the very beginning of the employee journey
Mm,
based on the values that align with who we are. When I moved out into a different type of role that strictly focused more on kind of culture and engagement, which is more of my sweet spot,
hmm
and then day to day HR stuff, I wasn't in charge of that area as much. And I saw things change a little bit over time. So, who we
mm,
hired, who we brought into the fold, leaders that we brought in who were really part of that didn't align with what we originally were all about. And I
mm,
could see that culture shift happen.
mm,
I am somewhat of a stubborn person. I don't let other people influence me in a negative way as much. And I do what I do and I model the behaviors for those around me. It's one of the things I love about fractional leadership. When
mm,
I sit in a senior leadership role in different organizations, a big part of what I do is be there and show up the way leaders need to learn how to lead.
mm,
And so I would say I'm uh, a self determined kind of person, kind of stubborn. I know this is the right thing to do, and I'm not going to let others around me impact that in a negative way if I don't feel they're living up to what we should be doing as leaders.
mm. That's excellent. Again, it's I've been in environments where it's been relatively easy to be for people, right? The money's flowing in, the pressure is light. People can show up and feel good, and it's all right. But again, I go back to I see that core in you that can be pushed up against, and yet you're still going to be true to who you are, right? You and I have been through a bit, and I'll share a little bit more of that here in a second. But we've been on a panel around the impact of layoffs. The Women in Technology of the Heartland asked you and I to be on a panel together, which is online if people want to see that. Um, and it just reiterated to me again, you were asked to give the perspective of a senior manager. And there were some really good advice that others gave on that panel, and yet I felt the temptation from some on the panel to go towards that typical kind of compliance and risk management view, and I understand that, and yet I so appreciated how you countered that with let's be honest with people, let's be genuine with people, and so I have consistently seen that from you, and it's one of the reasons I feel very lucky to consider you a friend.
Thank you. Yes. I mean, with that, I've been through series of layoffs. I've been in charge of it. actually a month into accepting the role as chief people officer. It was our last recession. And I moved from sales leadership and I wondered, what the heck am I doing? Why did I take this role? This
Mm.
is what I signed up for. Um,
Mhm.
was a little different than the last round of different layoffs we had when I wasn't necessarily in charge of it. And there is a stark difference.
Mm.
And so what I noticed most was what we do to make a really rough situation the best it can be
Mhm.
is get comfortable being uncomfortable.
Mhm.
Um, when people want to shy away from eye contact, conversations, one
Mhm.
on ones, communication, transparent communication, and
Mhm.
connection, that's when you amp it up the most
Mm.
because people are already scared. They already know something's off, something's going on. Why not talk with them about it and forge that connection even stronger, help communicate what needs to be communicated so they can still focus on their role, their
Mhm.
work, what needs to happen. And even if people aren't quite sure, well, gosh, what if I let go? What do I do? And
Mhm.
even just being able to speak in general terms of for those that might have to do this or we might have to go through that process, here's some
Mhm.
things that are helpful. And our company has never been the type of company that leaves people out in the cold. We're
Mhm.
gonna do things to support people even through these tough times. So I think amping that up, having one-on-ones, walking through, say if it's a corporate scenario, which was our situation,
Mhm.
walking through, saying hi to people, still connecting with them. What I've
Mhm.
seen also play out in many situations is the opposite. When things tend to go south and they know those things are coming, a lot of leaders will be kind of a recluse in their office, shut the door. They'll cut off
Yes.
communication. They won't be transparent. They certainly aren't communicating to the level they should.
Mhm.
And then things actually end up kind of worse in the organization because people freeze. That psychological safety piece isn't there. They aren't
Mhm.
sure. And most people will fill in the blanks with worst case scenario.
Yep.
And I've really seen that play out. And so why not try and curb that and treat people as people, no matter if they're staying at the organization or leaving the organization?
Mm.
And you sleep better at night when you
Mm.
know you've done the right thing for people, no matter what the outcome.
Mhm. That was so well said. I know, you know, and I know you know this, and I shared this in a previous episode too, but going through layoffs for the first time, right? The company I was with historically had not had layoffs. We were acquired, rebranded. Then that company had to go through layoffs, and I found myself in a position in upper management where I was having to um, deal with layoffs and having to let good people go. And I didn't want to do it, but having to do it and having to support the management team who also didn't want to do it. Having to have the communications with individuals who were let go on my own, trying to support them from behind the scenes and making connections and helping how I could. Um, that was a really hard time. The company I was with at that time really provided no guidance. I mean, they provided procedures, but no like support and guidance. And I was so appreciative you offered to come in and speak with our consulting leadership team. And I think you talked about initially, I think you gave maybe the same presentation about appreciating employees, but then you intentionally, as part of that, created the space for us to talk as a management team about, man, this was really hard. I didn't like it. We value our people, and this didn't feel good, and I don't know how to handle it. Um, and you were so gracious in stepping into discomfort, being able to give voice to how we were feeling about awkwardness of what had just happened, and I suppose in some ways some survivor's guilt. I suppose. Um, Ironically, I was then displaced a year later, but uh, well, one, I know I've told you this, but thank you for creating that space. What would you say to those leaders or to those members of, let's say, HR or different areas of the business who are having to do things that don't feel good? They feel awkward. They're maybe not getting the support they need. What would be a piece of encouragement you would have for those individuals?
Yeah, definitely. And First of all, you're welcome. It was my pleasure to come in and do that. It's
Thanks.
what I love to do and help leaders be the leaders that they can and should be. But I would say that I keep things super simple. I don't like to overcomplicate anything. And especially in stressful times, people have to hold on to something that is a quick, simple reminder. Anything more, we just tend to forget. I would just, it kind of goes back to one of those rules: treat people the way you want to be treated. It's
Mm,
that simple. It doesn't
mm,
have to be anything, outlandish. But if you were that employee, sitting in that seat, scared that you might be part of those or that something's going on, would you want your leader to just walk by and go shut their door in their office day after day? Or would you
right.
want them to come through and really rally the team and let them know hard things are here for our team, for our organization, but we are going to get through it together, whether some of us are going to be here or not? And don't know if that's necessarily, the transparency of some organizations. I'm super transparent and direct. So I
Hmm.
appreciate that. I'd rather know something's coming instead of being blindsided and not prepared. And so we can get through this together, whether certain people are here or not here, but let's work on this together. Any ideas that we can do to support each other? My role is to be here to communicate with you what I learn, what I know, anything I possibly can to help you still be able to focus on the work that's in front of us, which we're still all here to be paid for the roles that we're doing. But I also want to listen. That's a huge part of what leaders can do, is listen to people instead of just talking the whole time and then up and leaving, to really gauge how people are feeling. What are those concerns? What are those fears? To be able to speak to them appropriately, it always comes down to communication and connection.
Yeah. Thank you so much for that answer. And in my experience, I firmly second that. I've seen and experienced leadership that in hard situations does not listen, doesn't provide the employees the ability to speak and be honest. And while that may feel comfortable in the moment for that leader, that so much hurts the culture and how people view the company. The strongest move, in my opinion, is to create that space for people to speak honestly, and that may not, it may not change the action. Well, it may not change the ultimate course of where the company has to go, maybe, but that doesn't mean there isn't nuance in how things can be handled and how people can be made to feel valued and heard and appreciated. And there are actions that should come out of those conversations that show the leadership hears the employee, the leadership values their perspective. That is the strongest leadership, that lets the employees have the mic and speak freely to be able to share what they're thinking and feeling.
Absolutely. That is the ultimate of what leaders can and should do in those scenarios. Because who knows, we might be next on the list to be able to go through the same thing. And what would we want for
Right.
ourselves? And so, yeah, I would say, even from experience, when we part with people, whether it's because they chose to or we did, one thing I always did, was to be able to tell people, thank you so much for what you did at our organization while you were here, the impact you made, the impact you had on me. Here are some things that I noticed, and just know that we value your time and your effort of
Hmm.
working here at our organization. I'd even post some of those things on social media when they
Hmm.
would post something on LinkedIn or Facebook, just so they know they were valued and that we cared about them as a person and a professional. And that would go a long way. There would be people that we would need to let go, and they would still refer friends and family to us to work
Yes.
with our organization, because we have the brand, we have that personality of caring for people, and we were genuine and authentic in that approach, and we lived it every day.
That is excellent. And I know you and I have both seen this, but I've seen the cultures where once somebody puts in their resignation or is leaving, suddenly they're bad. They're bad people. They have crossed over. We no longer value them. We no longer give them good communication. And I think that is so short-sighted and such a mistake, because you just never know. Um, in some of my previous employment doing consulting, we had some people who left the company ending up referring business our way. And so even if you're just a numbers person, man, those people who are leaving, they're your advocates out in the market, right? And so even if you're like, hey, I just care about the numbers, those are lead generators for you, right? And I say that a little callously, but I'm speaking to those people who are just about the numbers. Those are your people out there sharing your message and how you work. And if they have a good, consistent experience all the way through, they're going to speak well of you into whatever businesses they go into. And it's just good things it's just the right way to treat people. It's how you'd want to be treated. What's that saying? Love your neighbor as yourself.
Yeah.
And so I have seen that. I know you've seen it. I'm so grateful that you're sharing the message of how to treat people, even if it's a voluntary motion or if it's a layoff or some other action. I appreciate what you're sharing, Christy.
Yeah, thank you. It's so true. I think how we treat people towards the end when they're offboarding and ending their time at the organization should be just as positive as when we hire them and they start and they're orienting to the company and onboarding. It should be a great experience the whole way through. I know I'm a little bit kind of nerdy with this where I go through employee experience mapping and it goes all the way through offboarding, even after somebody's no longer at the organization, to be able to reach out. How are you doing? I want to stay connected with you. Let me know how I can help. Those types of situations go such a long way, not for selfish reasons, but person to person. It just makes a huge difference.
Mhm.
Um, but those things do make a difference. So I think if we can be intentional about that with people and not just cut off communication, it doesn't negate all of the great things they did for us while they were at the organization by any means. And honestly, if people are leaving the organization on their own, to be able to not only thank them for what they did while they were there, but if we can help grow and develop them into roles that are even beyond our team, beyond our organization, great. We should be happy for them
Mhm.
and be able to support them in that. And you never know when people come back around and they're, I call boomerang type
Yeah.
of employees. They might come back to our organization later with even greater experience and skill sets and things to add to the team, but the door is open
Mhm.
and we had a positive experience and they want to be able to be a part of it again.
I know that boomerang is real. I've been a boomerang employee myself, so
Oh,
it's a
okay.
yeah. Um, I want to ask you maybe one or two more questions here, Christy. Do you have a word? I mean, I think at this point, those who are following along are probably aligned. I'm guessing, or at least believe in the view that we have as far as valuing people in the organization. What would be there is still a view out there, and I've run into it, and I'm sure you have too, where there's a sense of conflict between being for people and being for the business. I can't. I think sometimes there's a sense of, well, if I want to drive the business forward, I need people to feel like they're under pressure and they're not doing enough, and they need to feel like they're underwater so that they, work harder and we move the business forward faster and all those things. What word would you have about is it possible to be both for your people and have your business be succeeding financially as well? Are those things in conflict? What would be your thoughts? What would be your word on that?
Absolutely. I think the best, what I call magnetic teams, are the ones that treat their people well and they are a very tight knit team, but they're high performing teams. And that's ultimately what we want. It's a win win for the employees. So their experience is amazing at the organization. They're able to reach their personal, professional goals, but the organization wins because when people show up each and every day excited to do the work, to do the things that are in front of them with the people around them, they are unstoppable. And I've actually lived it in the past in my corporate life where we would crush the competition with
Hmm.
performance and we would grow and grow and grow, and acquire organizations. I know that was kind of more of our goal, but we definitely were one of the highest performing organizations in our industry out there because we did it in that manner, and it's pretty unstoppable when you create that situation for
Hmm.
people. So I would say the pressure piece of it is very real. And I know so many employees are feeling that today. And rightly so. Gosh, there's pressure from inside organizations and outside. You can't get away from it. But for leaders to take less of a short sighted approach where it's all about fear and pressure and lack of communication, lack of recognition, lack of connecting and caring about your people, no matter what is going on, to be able to switch that around a little bit and truly care for your people. And I know sometimes I use the word love your people, but that ultimately is the thing that puts leaders in the mindset of what would my person need? What is going to be the best scenario or framework or support I can do for them to be very successful and high performing in our organization.
Mm,
If they really kind of take that mindset, everything else is quite a bit easier. When it's really just about the pressure and the deadlines and this and that, people will burn out. They're going
mhm,
to quit. Most of the people I even personally talked to today, and the stats are there, even from Gallup, I think over half the people out in the workforce are actively looking for new employment
mm,
today. And even senior leaders, executives, they're in that boat. They're tired of the pressure and
mm,
not being cared for. And so the people I talk to, whether they're in organizations today or maybe they've been displaced and they're looking, most people are actually looking. They are not finding what they want
mm,
in businesses today in the United States. And so what scares me is this is the time people are hugging their jobs. They're holding on to them for a
mm,
paycheck
mm,
because it's pretty rough with the job market where it is right now.
mm,
When things ease up and things make the turn, then you're going to see a mass exodus of employees in most organizations at all levels.
mm,
And so to be able to lay that foundation and that groundwork today to do things the right way, and then when things really do pick up with our economy and some other things going on, those businesses who are doing it right today are just going to take off and outperform everyone else. And
mm,
people are going to be, beating down the door to get into their organizations and stay.
mhm. That's well said. I know your company is called Magnetic Cultures, and it's well named because I know I've seen and experienced, and I think people generally know companies in their area that are known for a higher culture, and those cultures do have a magnetic pull to draw good people their direction. So I think that's well said, and I love the name of your company.
Thank you. Yes, very telling. It's to help attract and retain top talent so they can thrive and perform and do all of those great things. And that's exactly what I love to do is create magnetic teams.
You do that outside of business as well, or at least outside of your business or outside of your clients, you create magnetic cultures just in general. And I know I've been a part of some of your network and gotten the chance to meet other people that you recommend that I connect with. And you're very good at finding um, different, but people who are aligned from a general values perspective. What do you look for when you're meeting somebody new? Is there something that you're looking for? What resonates that kind of tells you, oh, this is somebody who kind of fits my network? Is there something you're looking for?
Yeah, great question. So, I mean, there are typically a few different types of values that I look for. First and foremost, I spend the little time I have with people I actually appreciate and want to be around. That's the beauty of doing what I do. I don't have to spend time with those that I don't care for. But what I would say that really means is somebody all about themselves or are they about others? So if
Mm,
they're others focused, that's number one right there to me. Are they curious or are they judgmental? And I tend to veer towards the people who are curious and they
mm,
don't just judge other people
mm,
on short, simple things that really they don't have the full context or picture about. Also, I love people that truly care. If you don't care about everything going on with others, what's going on in the world, our workplaces, looking for the betterment of things, to me, that's a big piece of it. You need to care. And communication, people that love to communicate and not just talk all the time, because I tend to
mm.
be more of a listener. So to do this is a little uncomfortable for me, but I
You're doing
love
great.
to push myself, but I love to listen. And then I take that and do something with it
Mhm,
and communicate from there. But I would say people that are great communicators and really want to be able to connect with those other people. And then connection is that other piece, which is why I'm so excited to be on your podcast today
mhm,
because it's all about connection.
Mm.
And so I think some of those aspects, values, elements of people are really what draws me to them and keeps me connected to them also.
That's you so well said. And I'm picturing uh, an image of where we just have those values that you said and have an ideal person. We need to create a network out of that. That's so great. Um, and yes, connection is so important, and that's why I'm glad to be connected to you and to have you on Known Through Connection. What does connection mean to you at this point in your life? What does that mean to you?
To me, it means that people are open to understanding another person,
Mm,
another group of people, and that they're curious and want to keep that communication open. And that could be verbal or nonverbal communication, but to really be aligned on certain things with whether it's mindset or actions or a plan or strategy, whatever that really is, but connecting on something at that personal level where you really see each other and you really want to move forward together with whatever that is.
mm,
I know that's kind of a vague answer, but really getting to more of that core, deeper level than just some sort of plan on paper. Okay, let's go do it. Well, anybody can really do that. But connecting on that base level of humans where you really see each other and you want to help each other out and move things forward.
awesome. Awesome. Thank you, Christy. Well, final question that I want to ask is if somebody's been listening and they're like, wow, I really would like to know more about what is in Christy's mind, how she sees things, or just connect with you, what would be the best way for others to connect with you, with Christy Johnston?
Thank you for asking. I would say that a couple of ways are pretty easy. I'm on LinkedIn. I like to post content. I like to be out in that community on a regular basis. So feel free to check me out on LinkedIn. There's a way to connect directly through that. Also, my website, magneticcultures.com, really gives you some insight into what other people say about me, not just what I say about myself. And if you want to connect with me through there, we can set up a call. I love to have coffee with people, whether it's in person or virtual, and really just get to know one another and see how I can help. That's really why I do what I do to help other people with wherever they are at that stage in life in their professional career.
Excellent. Well, count me as one of the voices that is an advocate for you and so appreciative of who you are. This last year and a half for me has been so disorienting and reorienting, and yet you've been a constant through all that I've been through. So thank you for your friendship. Thank you for living out your values with me. And I'm so honored to be able to have you on Known Through Connection. So thank you for sharing some of your mind, your values with the Known Through Connection community.
You are very welcome, and thank you too. I'm honored to be your friend and on the podcast. This is so exciting. I appreciate it.
All right. Well, Known Through Connection community, thank you for taking the time to get to know Christy Johnston a little bit. Connect with her if this resonates with you. And as we kind of sum up a little bit, it is so important to, in your own business, if you're a leader, connect with your employees. If you're more of a lowercase leader, connect with your peers, connect with the people that you work with, and just connect outside of business. Make sure you stay connected with your family. Work is not the most important thing. Remember your friends, your loved ones, and as you go about your week, stay connected. Thank you, everybody.